Welcome everybody to episode 88 of the Game Changers. 88, can't you believe that? Oh my God. I'm your host, Carla, and tonight I'm bringing the heat with none other than Jody Smith. His knowledge and insights are sure to elevate our conversation as I dig into the game behind the game. A huge shout out to the incredible TSA team for backing this mission of amplifying voices and sparking ideas. This platform exists because of visionaries like them and listeners like you. Whether you're here for fantasy football gold or simply love stories that shift perspective, you're in the right place. The Game Changers is more than a podcast, it's a movement. Let's kick things off by getting to know our guest a little better. So tonight's guest is someone who knows the game inside and out, on the field and behind the scenes. Jody Smith is a former run and shout tight end turned fantasy football powerhouse. With over 15 seasons of writing and editing under his belt, Jody burst onto the scene in 2012 by winning Fantasy Pros Most Accurate Expert Award in his very first year competing. Since then, he's remained a top 10 multi-year analyst and was a runner-up in fantasy draft ranking just last season. Jody's insights have shaped thousands of articles for major platforms like Gridiron Experts, CBS, and Pro Football Focus. Today, he leads the charge as editor-in-chief at Full Time Fantasy, where his sharp analysis and editorial vision continue to elevate the fantasy football community. He was also named a finalist for the FSWA's coveted Article of the Year award in 2021. Off the clock, Jody's a fitness enthusiast, a budding guitarist, and a proud dad of three. He and his wife call home somewhere between Houston and Galveston, Texas. Let's dive into the mind of one of fantasy football's most consistent and compelling voices, Jody Smith. Hi, Jody. How are you today?
Good, Carla. It's nice to see you again. It's been all of 2 weeks since we saw each other, but that was an awesome intro. You did a great job, really kind of wrapping up how I got here. So excited.
Thank you so much.
It's nice to see you again.
It's really nice to see you. And I wait every single year for the expo to see people like you. And, like this is something that I wait for it every single year. What can you tell me by starting talking about the expo a little bit? What can you tell me about the expo? How many years have you been going, Jody? And how many friends have you made there?
Oh, let's see. I want to say 4. It's possible that I've been to 5, but 4 sounds like maybe there was one that I missed. But yeah. So the first year I went, I actually brought my then girlfriend, and part of my plan was to get engaged while we were there. Not the most romantic thing, but I thought it would be kind of a unique story. And I was going to propose to her the night before the expo. We had a hotel reserved in Cleveland, and there was this place where there's like a whole bunch of lights, and I had this plan already, and our flight got delayed 14 hours. So it really destroyed, what was supposed to be our special night. So I ended up having to talk to Bob Lung, and I made an audible, and I ended up proposing to her at the expo. And, maybe it wasn't as romantic as I wanted it to be, but it made it a fun, unique story. And I kind of set the bar high for attending the expo, because every other year I've been since then, it's just been a solo thing. But as of meeting new friends and that at the expo, absolutely. I don't remember what year it was I started hanging out with Doug and Jameson and JJ, but I didn't really know them other than maybe a few Twitter interactions here and there. But once we actually started to get to know each other, we realized that we have a lot in common, and that's the great thing of the expo. You get to get these people, and by and large, everyone is even better in person than they are online. But with Jameson and JJ, we got so close that in 2024, we actually went up a day early on Wednesday and flew to Pittsburgh and saw a baseball game and then drove in. And
Yes, I remember.
it just feels like you really start to forge these relationships, not even necessarily football related, but you start to care about these people, their
Yes.
personal lives, and you're texting each other all the time and all that. And that's to me, that's been the highlight of the expos, getting all of us together for, just a little 3 days to, just blow it out once a year and to get to know each other a lot better. And, I highly recommend it to anyone who's never gone.
I love that, Jody. And I love your proposal story.
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe it happened at the expo and I never knew about it. That's amazing, though.
Yeah, like I said, it wasn't supposed to happen there. It just ended up being, the way it all turned out. But no complaints.
It's meant to be. That's what we say. It's meant to be.
Yeah,
That's
I sent her a picture this year. I found the exact place she was sitting when I proposed to her, and I sent her a picture of me sitting in that chair.
And you are being the romantic right now. Oh my God. I'm a very romantic person. So that's the best story ever you're telling me right now. You found where you proposed and you send her the picture.
Oh,
I'm happy.
I'm the one who went out there. She's amazing. She's fantastic. She doesn't come to the expo, as much. She was like, all right, you set the bar too high. I'm not going back. But she's made me a better person. And she was what was missing from my life for a long time. And, I got homesick from the expo that year that us knuckleheads went to Pittsburgh, because that's the longest I'd been away from her. And, it was all in all, Wednesday morning to Monday evening was basically 6 full days. And I just man, I miss the boys. I miss her. I'm not coming back next year. I told them, but of course, after a few months, I was like, okay.
I know. I know. I love that. But she needs to come back. I need to meet her. I never saw her at the expo. I don't know if we've met, because you said you brought her at some point, but we're both redhead. So I saw the picture and I want to meet up with her right now. And knowing everything that she's doing, I really want to meet her. So she have to come next year.
I told her this year there was a lot more ladies in presence than I remember being in the past. So maybe I can work on her. But if I do bring her, I'm going to end up having to take time away from everybody else to placate her, because she's not all that interested in talking about football. And she's not a real high noon drinker like some people on this show. So I don't know. I mean, it would be nice. Jody. It would be fun, and to bring her and all that, but I just don't know how.
We can go shopping. Me and her.
Yeah, that might work.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that story. I never knew that about you, and thank you so much for sharing this story. This is really amazing. So let's talk a little bit about what first inspired you to pursue football and fantasy football, and eventually become a run and shout tight end.
Run and shoot tight end. That was an old.
Sorry.
Yeah, that was an old. I probably spelled that wrong. That was an old football formation and a precursor to modern, the 1990s football, where it just really, really pass heavy, and there really wasn't a lot of emphasis on run. But I played football, all throughout growing up, and all throughout high school. And what really kind of started the obsession was, most of your viewers probably aren't old enough to understand or remember, but Nintendo had Super Tecmo Bowl, and that was the first game that had real players, real stats. It kept everything. It was the most amazing thing in the world. And we would go to the video rental store and I would rent it out. Well, it turns out sometimes it'd be missing, and it turns out the other idiot that was renting it turned out to be my best friend at the time in high school. We didn't even realize it. Oh, you're the one that's taking the game. So we just started, spending all of our weekends when we were in high school would just be, we kept a notebook. We wrote down every stat, even the top 30 punt returners, top 30 kick returners. We wrote down everything. We had full seasons. We would stay up all weekend and play it. And I ended up finding another notebook from my older brother, in 1991 that had what was fantasy football. Now, we didn't understand the rules. We just saw football players and we saw 6 points for touchdowns. And so we just kind of whiffed on the rules and used our knowledge of Tecmo, and we started a football league, and it just became, our obsession. And, fast forwarding through that, that league, like I said, I would manually keep stats. I was still in school at the time, and
Yes.
there was a bus stop that we rode, and I would steal this person's newspaper
Yeah.
every Monday and Tuesday to get the box score so I could finish scoring my league. But most of us were in school, and that league is still in existence to this day, actually, and that just blossomed. And I ended up in a retail management position eventually, and I wasn't happy.
Yeah.
It was another weekend. I worked, through at the time, a 16 game, 17-week season. I worked probably 15 of those Sundays. So I'm missing everything. And it was frustrating because, a significant portion of my crowd of friends at that time were off on weekends. And I had a phone call and around the year 2000, 2001 with my best buddy. We were in the playoffs at the time. I said, how's my team doing? And I said, man, I just can't believe that people get paid to write about fantasy football. It's their job. I just can't believe it. And I still remember him saying, I hear you, man. I hear you. That started, the seeds of me, because I was always a good writer too. And it started the seeds, of me wondering, how do you get started, in something like that? How do you make that happen? And, some other things got in the way first. Like I became a father, I got married for the first time. These things got in the way. But when things settled down and I got comfortable in the year 2010, I finally got to the place where, I was like, let's see. So let's go to Google. And, I simply typed in one summer, fantasy football job writers wanted. And, I got a couple of bites. And the first place I was able to write to was Gridiron Experts. And, it just Mike Patch, who became one of my best friends in this industry, kind of opened a door for me. And it all kind of started from there. So that was, 15 years ago.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Which opponent or defender gave you the greatest test on game day?
Which defender?
Yeah. Would you say they gave you the greatest test on game day?
I don't think I'm understanding the question. Do they mean when I played? Do you mean like
Let's go with you were saying that you were a professional athlete. Let's talk about a defender in your life, or someone that gave you a greater test on a game day that you played.
Well, I can tell you when I played that I had more than one concussion from getting the hell knocked out of me by defenders. Because, like I said, I was a tight end, but in reality, what we would call a Y tight end, basically a slot receiver that did a lot of waggle routes and ran over the middle a lot. And yeah, I do remember getting knocked out by a guy so hard one time that that brief few seconds of my life is missing. And turned out he ended up in prison years later, not coincidentally, but
Yeah.
so we won't necessarily drop his name, but yeah, that was one.
Yeah, you don't want to drop his name.
No. I've actually been in contact with him since then, but
Yeah.
no need to bring that up. Plus, I don't remember it anyway.
Oh, okay. Tell me, what advice would you give your younger self before walking onto the field?
Wow. Work harder. I think back in the day, and I see that with my sons now, how they are real leisurely. They will spend all of their free time watching YouTube on a phone while they're scrolling, or watching YouTube on the television while they're scrolling their phone, not really paying attention to either. They have all this downtime. And I've tried, as a fatherly figure now, try to say, guys, you should do something more productive with your time. You could be reading, you could be learning something, you could be
Yeah.
out there hustling, you could be trying to improve yourself. And they're just like, they don't want to hear it. But in all honesty, that's the same thing that my father probably would have said to me when I was 18 or 17 or 19, whatever. And it's the
Agree.
same thing. As a more mature person whose brain is fully developed, with the exception of that concussive hits that I had back in the day, I would say, hey man, use your time more productively, because they see me now kind of doing what I love for a living, like that. I'm able to stay at home and do something I'm passionate about. I get so excited. I'll wake up at 3:30, 4 in the morning, and I'll just be like, you know what? I'm gonna go start working because that's what I want to do, because it makes me happy. And meanwhile, they're not at that position yet, nor they will they be at that age. But if they had the maturity and the drive to go out there and do that kind of thing, to use their downtime more constructively, maybe they can make that happen a lot easier in life than they wouldn't have to go through what I did, which is, spending a decade working in retail management and all that kind of stuff, and get to the
Yeah.
point where I absolutely hated it. I hated going to work. I had no passion for it. And, it got to the point towards the end where, I'm a different person now. I would have been a lot better at it. Like if I had to go back and do it now, I'd be more mature. I would use my time more constructively. But I think, that's the short answer to, this life goes by pretty fast,
Agree.
and you've got all this time, use it wisely, take advantage of it. And, I know it may be boring to read and to learn new things, or to go to school, or to learn new skills and all that. But in all reality, that's what's going to get you to where I am now. Like I said, I'm blessed to be home and doing something I love for a living.
That's awesome. So talking about your kids, how old they are? I know one of them because you posted a picture that he likes history,
Oh yeah.
and it blew Twitter, and everybody is sharing it from everywhere. So how old are your kids? Care to share that with us tonight?
Yeah, sure. That was that was a fun day. Not so much for his mother, but yeah, we had just split up, so that was one of his first weekends with me, and it just happened to be his 12th birthday. That was Brandon. He's 17 now. That was over 5 years ago. But yeah, he was trending #1 on Twitter, and
Wow.
I had to. This is a funny story about that. I had BBC, the television network, reach out to me and ask if I could come on and talk about it, and I said, well, sure. And so I'm getting ready, just like this. I'm talking on a computer, and we're getting ready to go live on television, and the screen goes black.
Oh.
So I did a live interview on BBC television where I didn't even see the guy. I just had to nod and agree and chat. And everyone's like, "You did a great job." I would have had no idea. Like, well, yeah, that was interesting. That was 5 years ago. So Brandon is 17, and my wife Denise has identical twin boys, and we all live, we all live together now here in what was my house, but they're 20. And one of them's in school, one of them works full time in the fitness industry, and he's become like my little football sidekick, because he was never exposed to caring too much about football until he finally sat down. This is always funny. Like week 18 of the 2023 season, he's like, dude, what are you doing every Sunday? And I'm like, yeah, just watch Red Zone with me once, and he was hooked. So now he's every day he's wanting to talk to me about football and all that. So that's kind of exciting, because my son Brandon, like I said, he's 17, but he still likes history a lot. But he likes license plates. I think a lot of people that I've known for a long time on Twitter were really, really generous, and they were sending us license plates. So he has quite a little collection of those.
I love that. I love people who collect. So you're lucky that you have a son that collects stuff. That's amazing. I love that, and I love that you can share, like whatever you love and fantasy, football, sports, and football with your other son. That's an amazing thing to do as well. So tell me, Jody, how did you prepare for Fantasy Pros Most Accurate Expert contest back in 2012?
Well, it was kind of scored differently back then. I want to say what happened was I didn't even know what it was, but I think the year before, somebody on the Fantasy Pro team had reached out and said, "Do you want to enter this contest?" And I was like, "I don't know what it is, but okay, I'll submit my rankings." And I was disqualified from the first year that I did the contest because it had already started. But I think the first week I finished like second overall or something like that. I was like, well, maybe this is something. So 2012 rolls around, and because I had participated at least for part of 2011, I got invited to do back. And so, starting in 2012, I was doing okay, in the contest as it started. And like I said, I'm going to be honest, it was a lot easier to win it back then. First off, it was scored differently. But second off, there wasn't as many people that are so brilliant in this space, that are so intelligent, that are so much better at it than I am. But they weren't in it back then. So it's a lot more difficult to win now. Anyway, I do remember that I was doing pretty well. And then week 6 overall, I finished number 1 overall. I can't remember Lamont Jordan. I can't remember his player's name anymore. It was a Jets running back. I just decided I'm going to go YOLO this week. I think he's going to go off. I don't remember, the details of it, but sure enough, he did. He had a great game. And so week 6 that year, I finished number 1 overall, and that vaulted me into first for the contest. And I managed to hang on for all till the very end. And I do remember that Mike Clay, who everyone knows on ESPN there, I think he was with Pro Football Focus back then, but he ended up like right at the end, like almost catching me. He was like first, like the last 2 weeks, and he made it really, really close. But
wow.
Yeah, I can remember the details because, like I said, that was pivotal for me because winning that gave me credibility that wasn't there before. Writing for a smaller site like Gridiron Experts, and it was almost impossible to get jobs with the bigger sites back then. But it did open the doors for me. I ended I stayed with Gridiron Expert for many years, but I also was able to branch off and to do some part-time things for CBS, for Pro Football Focus, for Fantasy Pros themselves back in the day, and that just slowly. You go into these sites, part-time, you do a good job for them, and your reputation starts to get built up. And, eventually, the door opens for, full-time positions, and that's where you get to.
I just want to say something, because you are so humble that instead of saying, oh, I won, and I don't care about anybody else, you were saying that you won because not many great people were into the game, and that's why you won. Yeah, but 100%. No, you won because you're that good too. And this for me is such a way of being humble that I never knew about you, and I do appreciate that because not everybody would say that, Jody. So thank you for being a big name in the industry and being humble at the same time. I really appreciate what you've said right now.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, having
it highly about you.
I like to think that I have self-awareness. Like I said,
yes.
100%. This has been asked. I've done a lot of AMAs on Reddit over the years where they ask that, and that gets asked a lot. I had a person bluntly ask me one time, what happened to your rankings? You were so good, and now you're not that good anymore. And that's what I tell them. Like, listen, my process hasn't changed. If anything, my process has gotten more refined and better. It's just that the competition is way, way more difficult. And that's with, brilliant people who have won the contest multiple times, don't even participate anymore. John Paulson, Jake Seeley, a lot of people aren't even in it. So I would be, even less successful at it now and all that. But again, fantasy football is vastly different in 2025 than it was when I started in 2010. It's way more analytics driven now. There are so many brilliant people and websites themselves that are completely dedicated to all this advanced analytics and all that craziness that if you had told me that was going to be, the future when I started in this business in 2010, I would have been like, I'm not even going to bother with that. But it actually turns out that we have some just geniuses, in this space, and a lot of them are able to make that transition over and to do things like accuracy contests and all that. And bless them for it. Like they make me better at it. They make, when I see like, man, I thought I had a good week and I finished, 48th this week. What's the deal? I'll look at, behind, we have access behind the numbers. We can see like where you went right and where you went wrong. So I'm always, trying to refine my process.
Yeah. So talking about winnings and and stuff like that, what did finishing as fantasy draft runner up last season teach you about your process?
Well, that I was right, that all the effort, because I had so I don't know what year it was that Billy and I, both with full-time fantasy, both of us had in the draft contest finished. I finished 8th and he was 1st. And I was like, all
Oh yeah.
right, we've got this locked down. We got it down. And then the next year, I dropped off into the 80s, and I was like, man, what happened? So, come 2022, I spent more time on it, spent more effort. I was like, let's reel it back. Let's figure out what we were doing and what we did differently. And it worked. I got back into the teens. I think I finished 18th. And then last year, I perfected that. I spent far more time than a rational person should want to do every day studying the movement of the players and the rankings and the analytics and all that. And that's what I did. And as much as I'm happy that I finished second, I thought throughout the year that I was okay. This is a pretty good year. I finished. I figured I was like top 30 or so. I was surprised to see second, but
Yeah.
if it hadn't been for Tyreek Hill, I probably would have been first. But that's a conversation for a different show. But I did refine my process, and it's really interesting as I'm seeing the everything get updated now. I felt like when I had my initial 2025 rankings ready, I had a lot of outliers. Like I was way above consensus on some players, and I was way below on others. And it's really interesting now as the season is right here, right around the corner.
Yeah.
Almost all that edge I had is gone. Like everyone else is like right where I was. And it's kind of interesting. It makes me think like, I wonder if they're actually looking at what I'm doing and then adjusting theirs on the side. And if so, that's a huge compliment that people will do that. If not, if then it tells me, if no one's paying attention to Jody Smith, which I wouldn't blame them, but it tells me that my process was right. Because if I was on top of these players, back in June and July when I first started going to work on it, and here it is very late August, and my edge is gone, then that tells me that my process was right.
That's amazing. So, how do recent rule changes in the NFL alter player valuations?
Well, rule changes. I mean, you got one this year coming up for what kick returns. I mean, that didn't change it much. I guess there's a small sliver of leagues, but I can tell you as a football fan, the
Yes.
biggest rule change for me over the years has been how defensive players are put at an unfair disadvantage by all the penalties. I mean, they can't play like they used to. Like nowadays, any sort of hard hit. And this person that has made it to the NFL throughout their entire life basically was thought, hey, you separate the defender from the ball. I mean, the receiver from the ball. Got to get out there. You got to lower the shoulder, and boom, they'll make a perfectly legal, clean hit, and then they get a penalty. So it feels like all of the rules are in favor of the offense, which seems kind of unfair. Because I spent as much as I was a tight end and can empathize with offensive players. I also played a little bit of DB, and I really liked it. Like the most fun I had on the field was when I got to play free safety, because back then you got to set out in center field, and part of the fun was getting to knock the hell out of people. I mean, that was part of it. And nowadays they can't do that anymore, and it almost feels unfair. And I get why the NFL is doing it. They can say player safety, which obviously is important because everyone's an asset, and you don't want people's careers getting shortened and people getting hurt. But
Yeah.
a lot of it has to do with the growing popularity of fantasy football, and people can deny that or they can accept it, but it's It's flat truth. That's why there's a red zone channel. That's why the NFL every year is making more and more money. And you can look at the numbers. There's a thing on the Fantasy Cares homepage that has the numbers that estimates how many millions of people and how many billions of dollars are spent every year on the sports. And obviously, the NFL's obviously noticed that.
Yeah, of course. They're making a lot of money because of that. I agree. So talking about football right now, there's something that's um, out there and everybody's talking about, which is Kelsey Swift engagement. What's your intake into this? Do
Uh,
you agree with it being like so popular and like
well,
everywhere?
look. I know I love music as much as the next person, but I don't listen to much current music, and so I do understand the popularity of Taylor Swift, and there's some songs that I may not have known that were heard that I've heard like, oh, that's a good song, that's catchy. I have no issues with it, and actually, I think it's great. I think the whole Travis Kelsey Taylor Swift relationship is fantastic because of what it's doing is it's opening the door to a huge demographic of people that wouldn't otherwise care about football. Maybe they just want to watch Taylor Swift's fiance play football, but you know what? They want to watch football, and you know what? Maybe they're like, "Hey, this is kind of fun. Maybe I'll watch this Jets Browns game. He's not in it, but I like it." And then next thing you know, Carla, you know what they're doing? They're starting an all girls fantasy football league, and that's good news for me. That's good news for you. That's good news for everybody. So I'm definitely all for it. As far as like what I think, I don't care. It doesn't bother me in the slightest bit that they show her a lot on the TV show. It doesn't. I don't get upset about things that don't necessarily pertain to me. Like, oh, who cares? They show other celebrities. If the president was on there, they'd be showing him too. So it doesn't bother me in the slightest.
I love that. I agree 100%. Like everybody was talking about it, but I wanted to put it there to see
Yeah,
what you have.
bring on all the Swifties. Let's start a Swifty football league. I'm all for it, please.
Let's go. So, what's one overlooked statistical category you wish more people studied?
Wow, there's so many smart people in this space that could probably better answer, that sort of advanced analytics and all that. Because a lot of times, like from my view, okay, I'm going to answer that on a different tangent. I think the balance. All these advanced statistics, yards created after contact and all that, they all are relevant. They all tell a really, really interesting piece of a story. But sometimes we become a slave to these numbers. Sometimes we're looking too much at, an edge that really can't be defined by watching a game. And we're forgetting to do just that, to just sit back and enjoy it and just watch the actual game. To me, it'd be hard to pinpoint any one particular stat. Like, we all tend to have, when we're writing, when we're analyzing, we all have a narrative. So if I'm, for instance, I'm lower than consensus on Caleb Williams this year, I'm going to cherry pick data that verifies that, like how bad he was last year and how the offensive line probably wasn't that terrible. It was actually him, and how he missed obviously all these easy throws, and how he was taking too many sacks. And I can cherry pick it, but other people can cherry pick other, stats. It just, it fits your narrative. I didn't mean to, go off on that tangent, but like I said, I don't get too big into any one particular type of stat. I'm just as likely to write about your very basic stats, which is yards per carry and touchdowns forced. Touchdowns and receptions and targets, that I am to actually go find something like missed tackles forced and all that kind of stuff. I understand in this space that the vast majority of people that are playing football from the go time, which is September through February, are more casual people. Now, people watching this podcast in August are probably more hardcore, and anyone watching a football related podcast in March and in May and all that is definitely hardcore. So all that kind of stuff is probably the kind of thing they want to hear. I try to, when I'm writing things in season, I try to not be too thick with that kind of data, because I understand that, like I said, a lot of people, it's a little more casual for them. They're just in an office league and are doing this. They don't even understand maybe what air yard percentage and air yards and ADOT and all that kind of stuff even means, much less how it affects them. They just want to know very basic stuff. So.
Well, I'm gonna let you know that your answer made Iggy happy behind the lens. So he was pointing at himself and he was so happy. So you made someone happy, Jody, just letting you know. That was an amazing answer, I think, for a lot of football fantasy players. That's amazing. Can you share a little bit about the story behind your 2021 FSWA Article of the Year finalist piece?
Oh, wow. Yeah, of the thousands and thousands of things I've written over the years, that was by far the best thing I've ever written, because I wrote it on the morning of September 21st, 2021. That was when Mike Tagliere passed away. Mike was, anyone who's been in this space, it was a shock. We knew he was battling COVID, and we hadn't had any updates from Tabby, his wife, in a while.
Yeah.
And so 2021 was a difficult time for me. My father passed away in June 24th of that year, and I had I'd just gone through a divorce. It was a tough time, and within whatever it was, 6 or 7 weeks of my dad dying, Mike Tagliere passed away, and I felt like he was my best friend in the space at the time. Him and myself and his wife had met up in 2016 at the FSGA in Dallas, and we just had a great time, and that was a fun story. And I was just shocked. I logged on Twitter that day and I saw Tabby's post that said he didn't make it, and I cried. It really upset me, and I had just started at full-time fantasy, weeks before that. And I asked Scott, "Hey, can I write something personal?" He said, "Sure, man." And the post that I wrote that was nominated was it was a way for me to say some things. It was a way to to kind of heal. It was a completely personal post, which I usually never do. I don't share a lot of personal things. I always have preferred not to refer to I or me in my writing. Like, I prefer to make a more neutral stance and let the reader decide. But in this case, it was a completely personal article that went over our trip to Dallas, and I've went back and I read that piece, and I'm extraordinarily proud of it. Like, I read it, and I think all of us that are writers, we read, we tend to fall in love with our writing. Like, a lot of times I'm also, I edit, and I'll miss mistakes in my own writing because I've just fallen in love with the way the flow is. I'm like, this is great. And somebody else is you missed a word. Like, oh gosh, didn't even see that. I can edit the hell out of anyone else's work, but my own. But in this case, I'll go back and I'll read that with tags. And to me, it's like I said, it's the best thing that I've ever written, and was very proud that it was nominated for an award. And the fact that there were other brilliant articles that year that obviously won and all that. But to me, it's something I'm very, very proud of, and it was part of a healing process, and even to this day, it's been
hard
going on. This will be 4 years since we've had with no mic.
Yeah, I remember when Doug was talking about it as well, and I just see that you're wearing the t-shirt Tech Strong.
Oh, what a coincidence.
And how you all made sure that a chair was there present at the expo every single year. I didn't see it this year, honestly. Maybe I didn't look at it. I wasn't sure if it was
I think
there,
I think
but
Gary. Yeah, I think Gary's.
Gary always, yeah, made sure that a chair is there in his name. And I do believe this is what brings the community together. And this is what makes you strong together as well, which is really an amazing story. I don't know him on a personal note, but I've heard a lot about how nice of a
Yeah,
person he
yeah.
is.
Uh,
So,
uh, Great guy, a brilliant analyst. I believe he was the first, full time person that Fantasy Pros, uh,
yeah,
hired. And he, the advice I give to people that ask me, about getting into space, and I try to tell them, listen, I'm going to give you some impossible advice. Don't be another shouting, screaming head. Just because
yeah,
you talk loudest doesn't necessarily mean you're the best. Maybe that's even a shorter or briefer route to getting full time or getting acknowledged. Content engagement farming, whatever you want to call it.
it's
I said,
hard.
set the bar as Mike Tagliere. Be him. And people might say, well, that's impossible. Mike was on a different level. Like, you're right, though. But that's who we should all strive to be. Like, we should all be like, man, like me personally, I wish I was half of the analyst that Mike Tagliere was. When he started doing the primer, which Debro, does a great job to this day taking on. That was Mike's bread and butter. But it was a beast of an article. It was like, man, it took a horse to be able to churn that out every week. And Mike was just amazing on camera. He was amazing on the mic, and he was just a great dad, just a great person in general, good friend, and just never seemed to have a bad day. Was always so supportive to everyone. A lot of people have stories in this space where they could be like, man, I was just a nobody back in the day, and Tags took the time to get in my DMs and encourage me and gave me tips. Like, yep, that's just who he was.
That's such an amazing human being. I like that. I like hearing these stories about someone that passed away and have a legacy to continue. That's beautiful. So talking about writing and the article and stuff like that, which is a really great dedication that you did. So how do you maintain depth and nuance while keeping articles digestible?
I don't know. Can you give me a little more detail on what you're
I
asking?
can I can give you something else to talk about. Maybe you can talk about the hardest part about writing on players or team you admire. How about that?
Ah, um, competition. Like for me personally, I feel like I have a difficult time now coming up with like every once in a while, okay, about 2 months ago, I had this. I was looking at Saquon Barkley, and I was like, you know what? It feels like every year, whoever leads the league in rushing completely falls apart the next year. I'm going to start researching that, and it just became like a really exciting idea. I spent an entire weekend accumulating data, and I put that article. I'm really
Yeah.
proud of it. It turned out phenomenal, but so many great ideas I see get thrown out, and I won't say I'm jealous, but I'm like, man, I wish I had to come up with that. That's brilliant. Like, how did he? Man, that's so great. So like for me, it can almost be intimidating because there's so much more competition. There's so many more people. There's so many more full-time jobs that are out now. There's so many more websites competing for, eyeballs and clicks and
Yeah.
whatnot. So it can be tough to come up with an idea if you don't want to be an engagement farmer. Like, it can be extremely tough to come up with an idea to stand above the crowd. Like, if you're more reserved like I am, more laid back, I prefer to say it I prefer to think of myself as more mature than
Yeah.
maybe some of the kids that are out there these days. But it's difficult. So yeah, it can be intimidating to try to
I think about
give a go ahead. That was my son that we just talked about earlier, letting me know it's back home.
Say hi, please. What's one editorial mistake you made early on that taught you a big lesson?
I had somebody correct me that so if you're using like Grammarly or whatnot, it's not going to catch this, but it
No.
was complimentary. So if you spell that word one way, it means Carla, you look gorgeous. That's a compliment. But if I want Zach Charbonnet as the complimentary back to Ken Walker, that's a totally different meaning to the word. And
Yes.
like I said, as an editor, I missed that, and I had someone that I really respect in the space kindly tell me one time. But it's words like that. Like as an editor, it can drive you crazy how often, how prevalent I see people using. They want to say, I want to be a part of blank, but they spell it together, a part. Okay. It almost
Yes.
means the exact
Part.
opposite, a part and a part.
True.
And there are other phrases and words that I don't personally do that, but and they're words that I consistently misspell all the time. Like lately, I don't know why, but I will type FF. I'll type football, but the second L I put after a space, and I don't know why. It's like, why do I keep doing this? And this player, I don't know why it felt so good, but Danny Amendola, old wide receiver, he hasn't played in many, many years, but I always, for some reason, when I was typing his name, I would always add an S to the end of it, and it just felt so good, like Amendola. And I don't know if it was because I was spelling New Orleans a lot or why I was doing that, but
You're
it
making
was
him
almost like
Spanish, maybe.
muscle memory and all that. But it's I don't mind if I were to go back before I even had Grammarly and stuff and look at some of my early articles that I wrote. I probably would be
Yeah.
embarrassed. I'd be like, oh man, that word needs to be hyphened together, and that's the wrong usage of that term, and you know my writing isn't as elaborative as it should be. We all get better at it.
Of course, like years and years of, getting better. That happens everywhere. How does leading a team as editor in chief at full time fantasy differ from being a contributor?
Well, I mean, it's got its pros and cons. One of the
Yeah.
one of the negatives is if someone's babysitter didn't show up, or someone's sick, or someone just no shows, or just whatever happens. Well, now it's your responsibility. Even if I had another weekly task that I had to get done, well, now I've got to, for instance, I've got to go write the waiver wire column. I wasn't necessarily scheduled to, because it's just part of, we have minimum expectations, things we have to do every week. And, as you're in charge, then the buck stops here. I've got to get it done. You either have to delegate or you got to do it yourself. And, if you're running a team of people, everyone's got strengths, everyone's got weaknesses. So, if there's a situation that I can delegate something, I have to know, is this person capable of doing it? And a great example is if I had a DFS article and somebody no-showed or said, I can't write this week, something happened. Like, great, I can't get a person who doesn't know anything about DFS to write that article, clearly. So you have to know that too. And when you're just a contributor, you can just have tunnel vision. All I got to do is, task A to task B, and I'm done. Whereas, when we're in charge of a crew of people and a team of people, you have to have, you have to have a stronger vision and be able to understand. It's like being a quarterback. You have to understand everyone's responsibilities and what the ultimate goal is, versus all I got to do is, I'm the left guard. All I got to do is block that D tackle right there, and I'm all set.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. It's a juggle. So let's talk about Jody's personal life a little bit. What does your current workout routine look like?
Oh, workout routine. Generally, I try to do it 6 days a week. The only off day is Sunday, which works out brilliantly here coming up in September and February. I don't have to
Yeah.
go. That it used to be I was off on Thursdays and Sundays, but I just decided, what, let's keep it going. We're starting to see results, so let's start going on Thursdays too. And then it became entire days dedicated to just body parts. So if you want to be specific, like Mondays, my chest push day, triceps, all that kind. Tuesday is biceps, arms. Wednesday, today is my least favorite day of the week, is leg day.
Thank God you don't skip leg day.
I don't. At first it was all just, it was all chest, arms, rotate. But I was like, let's go ahead. And I actually had a, one of them scans, and it was like, you're 136% muscle when your arms, 114% your chest, and your leg was like 101. Like, So yeah, it's Monday's chest push day. Tuesday is arms. Wednesday's leg day. I have an entire Thursday. Like I said, it used to be an off day. Now it's become a core day. It's an entire day of just my abs.
Zumba, let's go.
Obliques. Yeah, I could do that. I have a little ab roller. Like I'll do this stuff at the gym, and then I'll come home and I have an ab roller.
Nice. Yeah.
That's Thursday, and then Friday is a repeat of Monday. Saturday is a repeat of Tuesday, and then Sunday is off, and then you start over again.
That's cool.
This all became after I did 75 hard. I think you've heard of that routine. That was something I did February after one football season, and I really enjoyed it. I'm a rigidly disciplined, stubborn person. When I start something, I'm going to finish it. I'm going to complete it. And that was with 75 hard. It's just funny. I tell the story that you can't see here, but I've got a scar on my forehead because one day I was out doing my second workout for the day, which has to be outdoors, and I was riding my bike, and I went to look behind me at traffic, and I ran into a telephone pole, and it busted my head, and I mean like gushed.
Jody. No.
I had to, stop. I had to pause my workout, and I had to take my shirt off, and I'm holding it.
Oh my God.
I should have took a better picture. I took a picture. I looked like Ric Flair, like when they went to razor blade their head. I had it, and it was all everywhere. But my concern was, this is like day 66 of 75. I'm like, I'm not blowing this, so I'm going back out. So I finished my bike ride holding this T-shirt.
Good for you. Good for you.
I was like, nope, we're not blowing it. And like she said, all in all, I enjoyed most of 75 hard. Believe it or not, the thing I liked the least about it was the drinking a gallon of water a day.
Yes.
Too much. As a matter of fact, I went to the doctor and had blood work done as soon as I finished that routine. And my doctor wrote back, your blood work looks phenomenal, except for one thing. I'm concerned about your kidneys. And I explained to him what I did. He goes, okay, that would have been it. So I actually know that it's bad for me to drink that much water.
It is bad for everybody. If your body doesn't need it, you don't drink it. So that's not good. Yeah. Talking about you doing music, you love music. How did you first pick up the guitar, and what song are you learning now?
So that became about as part of the healing process, of losing my dad. My dad was huge into music, loved Pink Floyd. And we all growing up thought, that's old timer. That's fuddy duddy music. I don't care about that. But it turns out my dad was 100% right on that. I didn't really start getting into Pink Floyd until like 2005 or so. But anyway, I was always interested in learning guitar and whatnot. But I can tell you that along, like we hit on that a few minutes ago, along with when my dad passed away in 2021, and I was still processing a divorce. I briefly, for a year or so, I had lived in this house by myself, and I started having, I started doing things that my ex-wife seemed to have a problem with me doing, which was simply minding my own business, listening to music on the patio. So my way of rebelling was to do that.
Yeah.
And so I would sit on my patio and just crank up music, a lot of Pink Floyd, especially after, Dad passed away, and have a couple of beers. Well, it was getting to a point where a couple of beers was becoming, a lot more than a couple. And I had to reel that in. But on one of those nights, I had more than a couple. And the thought came in my head, Dad would want you to buy a guitar. So that's exactly what I did. I ordered this Stratocaster kit off of Amazon. And then I just started watching YouTube videos and picked it up. And then I actually started paying for legitimate lessons. And
Nice.
the easiest song that I could probably do now, it's a song called Claudia's Theme. It is actually it was written by Clint Eastwood for the movie Unforgiven, which I believe won the Best Picture in 1992. But it's a beautiful song that plays at the beginning of that movie and at the end of it. And it also was featured in an episode of Yellowstone. My wife and I watched that. I recognized it immediately. But it's a pretty easy song to play because by and large, you're just playing on one string. So it makes it kind of easy to play.
Yeah. My son is picking up right now in high school. He's picking up guitar.
Oh,
So
great.
I'm
That's great. Man, you know what, Carla, this is awesome because the other day, it's a lot easier for me to bond with my stepson, Alex, because he's the one that's getting into football. The other one, we don't have a lot in common. It's not that we have a bad relationship. We have a great relationship. But the other day, he did come up to me and he asked me if I knew about a certain Radiohead chords. And of course, Radiohead might be up there with Pink Floyd as my favorite music. And I said, well, let's pull it up on Songster and take a look at it. I'm like, okay, well, that's a C chord, and you shift to A minor, and so we start. I start showing him the fingerings, how he could do it a little easier, and then not long after that, Alex, the other kid, came home from work, and he grabbed his guitar. So the three of us were, kind of going over those things. It made my wife cry because
what an amazing moment.
Because at one point, Adrian actually slipped up and called me dad, and that felt great. But it made her.
Oh my god!
it made her cry. That was a really nice time.
Oh my god, I love that for you, Jody. That's amazing. That's really awesome. You're telling us like a lot of beautiful stories right now about your life and stuff.
That was my point of going off now. You said your son is learning it in high school. Fantastic.
Yeah.
The earlier you learn, the better you're going to be. Don't wait until you're in your 40s like some of us did and pick it up, because at that point you're never really going to go anywhere with it. If you're a teenager or 20 or like my sons, and you're picking it up, like, hey, you never know where your path's going to be. So pick it up and get passionate about it. All that time I talked about earlier that they're wasting their time scrolling TikTok while the YouTube is playing on the phone and they're tuning out. You know what you could be doing? Learning guitar. Use that time constructively.
So my other two, two, Joe Michael and Cassia, they used to play the piano and the violin and swimmers. And my youngest, he have ASD. He's on the spectrum, and we used to do a piano, and then COVID hit. But now he wants to pick another music, and he picked guitar, and I'm so proud of him. I used to play piano myself, and I love music.
That's great.
Yeah. It's such an amazing thing.
I was trying to learn how to play Imagine from John Lennon one time, because when you go to these places with a piano, that'd be cool to be like, everybody knows that song. I was probably learning it the wrong way, but that's the thing. Like when you go to legitimate lessons from a real musician, it's a lot more complex than watching a YouTube video, and everyone learns differently, and I get that. But it felt like on all the hours I spent on YouTube, that all got ruined by just 2 or 3 lessons with a real musician, where it was almost like, I don't remember. I only was in music 1 year, 6th grade. I played bass clarinet. I did not like it, but I completely lost how to read music and all that kind of stuff. And once you lose that, it's hard to come back.
Yeah, but I'm glad you're picking it up back again with the guitar. It's really cool. I love that. You shared a really great moment with your sons. What's one of the funniest parenting moments you've experienced with your 3 sons?
So it's probably more funny to me than it is them, but probably the first vacation, maybe it was the second vacation, we went to out to we floated the river in New Braunfels, which is west of here, and it gets dark, and I don't see all that well out of one of my eyes, and and they didn't know that. So I just kind of jokingly told them that as we're driving down this canyon road, and it was just one of them roads where the growth is real close to the street. And they thought I was gonna wreck and scared the hell out of them. They were asking me to pull over, and I was like, where am I gonna pull over? But it was just me, kind of messing with them. And I thought it was funny. But to this day, they bring it up. You remember that time you were gonna drive? I was so scared. Guys, I've been driving like 32 years. We're fine. Y'all been driving like 5 minutes. Chill.
I love it. What's the most surprising skill you've gained from fatherhood?
Patience. So I think any parent that's honest will say this. No human on this planet has made me angrier than my son over the years. And you got to understand what Brandon he's autistic. So there's challenges and there's struggles with that. But I've always been impatient, and there's times when my anger has gotten like scary level, but I've done a pretty good job, I think, of reeling it in, not screaming so much at him, and being able to reel it back in and realize he's not necessarily doing this on purpose. Now he's as rigidly and stubborn as his dad is, but so probably the best skill or asset that I've had learned being a dad is learning patience. And that's actually helped me outside of being a dad too, because that patient has been like, I've learned that you don't necessarily have to speak in all situations. Sometimes when you want to add like a little part of a conversation, now a little part of me says, hey, do you really want to say that? Maybe just keep your mouth shut, see where the conversation goes, and don't necessarily share that. So a lot of times I feel like now maybe it's just getting older, maturity, but I've learned to spend more time listening and less time yapping sometimes.
Agreed. I love that. Yeah, our kids teach us a lot of patience, a lot of patience. They are amazing. I just want to say thank you to Dennis. He is, answering every single question with us, saying everything. I love that you sing, play bass and piano, Dennis. That's amazing. That's such an amazing thing to do.
That's a real musician there, Dennis. I'm envious.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
I sure can't sing. I know that. I'd love it. Karaoke is one of the more fun things I've ever done. But boy, I'm terrible.
Yes, I like that.
When you get in that zone, when you're with people that you're comfortable with, and like you're like, oh well, once I knock out a song, I just want to sing a bunch of them. Even if I sound terrible, I don't care.
Well, I did ask Andy last time if he wants to sing a Pink Pony with me, so he said no.
You mean the Pink Pony Club?
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know if this is a coincidence that you're bringing this up, because it was on Twitter earlier, but I saw that somebody named their fantasy team Pink Pony Chubb.
Oh my God, no.
Wow, that's freaking brilliant. I would not know what that song was. I would have been like, I didn't even get that reference until about a month ago. My wife and I went to a karaoke place down the street here, and a young lady sang Pink Pony Club. Of course, I'd never heard it before. Didn't know who it was or whatever, but she's singing it, and I was like, this is a really interesting song, because the electronic part is right in the wheelhouse of the music that I grew up liking, like the Depeche Mode, all of this kind of 80s synth pop, like Depeche Mode. It kind of had to me a little bit of Radiohead and Muse vibe to it, the electronic part. So I was like, I don't know what the song is, but let me look into it. So I did, and I learned kind of what it was about. That's interesting, but the young lady that was singing it did a great job.
Yeah.
Funny, yes, like I said, that just got brought up today, and I asked my son Adrian what he thought of the football team name Pink Pony Chubb, and he approved.
I love that.
Yeah.
Dennis is like, we are all professionals in the shower. I agree with that. Dennis. So, Jody, we're over an hour. I don't want to finish what we're talking about. You're such an amazing person, but I want to continue with some of fiery, fast, rapid fire questions.
Sure.
Who's your favorite quarterback of all time?
Uh, if you want to ask who meant the most to me in my life, probably Warren Moon of the Houston Oilers.
Okay.
Back,
What's
that
your
was my
oh,
team.
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, that was my team back in the day, and all the highs and the lows, a lot more lows, but
What's your favorite golf course you've ever played?
just municipal courses down here. I like golf. I just haven't played in a lot. So there's one on Diamond Head Lane. Maybe that's what it's called in Crosby.
Yeah. Morning person or night owl?
Oh, I'm a morning person.
Yeah, I'm a night owl.
I'll get up at 5, 6 a.m.
That's crazy. I have to wake up at 6 a.m., but I don't want to wake up at 6 a.m. I'm a school teacher. I have to.
Okay. Tell you what, when I was working that retail job that I hated so much, I was working ridiculously crazy hours every weekend, every night, and I was salaried, and I'm working 60, 70 plus hours a week. So if I ever get an opportunity where I'm working normal hours, I'm not looking up, I'm not giving that up.
I agree. Crunchy or smooth peanut butter?
Crunchy.
Yes. First concert you ever attended?
Depeche Mode, Songs of Faith and Devotion tour, 1994.
Favorite movie quote?
I'm your Huckleberry.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Which superpower would you choose and why?
Oh, wow. I don't know. It might be nice to fly.
Why?
Well, maybe that's not a great choice considering I'm scared of heights.
Oh, Jody.
Maybe I'd get over my fear of heights if I could fly.
That's a good answer. Favorite pizza topping?
Ooh, grilled chicken.
Oh. What app do you open first each morning?
Probably Gmail, if you would call that an app. After that, probably my work stuff.
And how do you celebrate a big fantasy win?
Might have a high noon on a patio if the weather's right.
Nice. Jody, I really don't want to wrap up this episode. I cannot tell you how honored I am to have you on the show, honestly. But I do have one more question. I always ask my guests before I finish the episode. So I do ask them if they want to share a secret they never shared before on the show, or something that they did at a young age but they never spoke of, but they want to share it today with us on the show.
Oh, I think when we were about 9 or 10, there was this girl across the street we didn't care for, and my buddy ran a water hose into her bedroom window and turned it on through the window, and it's like to this day I think she got in a lot of trouble for that, and they never knew who it was. It wasn't me, it was my buddy, but I always felt kind of bad about that. She was a nice enough girl. She didn't deserve that.
You never told her that?
No,
now she needs to search Jody Smith.
My best friend. I wasn't going to rat out my best friend.
Oh my God, Jody.
Hey, Brent Poole, if you're watching this, you owe me, buddy. Well, I just ratted you out after 40 years or whatever it was.
Oh, you put him under the bus right now. Oh, you owe him. You owe him. That's an amazing story. I can't. Oh my God. So, Jody, before we wrap up, please let our listeners know how they can connect with you online and stay updated with your work.
Probably the easiest thing to do is just find me on X or Twitter. I'm at Jody Smith NFL. But other than that, you can find I'm pretty much running all the machinery there at Full Time Fantasy. So you can join the Discord, or you can just pop onto the website and you'll see all the articles and all the contact information is there.
I love that. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining me on this episode of the Game Changers. I hope today's conversation gave you a fresh perspective, not just on fantasy football, but on the game of life. Mark your calendar next week. We have Gary Davenport, the grandfather of IGP, right? That's what you guys call him. So you don't want to miss that one. Big thank you tonight for Iggy for his behind the scene magic and to the Powerhouse team at TSA for making this platform possible. If you enjoyed today's episode, please make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and follow us on social media. Stay connected and be part of the Sports Affiliation, a community where every fan, thinker, and change maker belongs. Until next time, keep challenging the game and making your mark. This is Carla and Jody Smith signing off. I wish you all a pleasant evening. Thank you, Jody, so much. Have a great night, everybody.